Hello, Yoav. Hello, Jan God. No subjects. I mean, there's lots of subjects I could talk about, but how Just Chatting streams started was they were just chatting streams. And anybody who wanted to come on and talk could come on and talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. There's no reason why we have to talk about the stuff I talk about. I like to talk about. I mean, we could talk about my hat. Trey got it for my birthday. Think it's pretty cool, no? I could make you guys listen to what I was listening to. Yoav is going to love this.
ما نتونين وما نؤمر ما ندبر وما نتصدق نحبس درخين وبنحكورة
Perhaps. I probably shouldn't be rebroadcasting this. It's from Shazoli, but it was broadcast on Israeli television, so I think it, and it's from the chief rabbinate, so I think it doesn't have copyright, but, and I don't think Shazoli would copyright strike me, but I probably shouldn't be playing it anyway. And I know Yoav is not a huge fan of Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. I mean, Yitzchak Yosef, sorry. Yitzchak Yosef. I know a lot of Yosef Yitzchaks. He's the only Yitzchak Yosef I know of. We were talking, some of us, about antiphonic music, and Gavin!
Hello.
Hello. What happened to the, whatchamacallits? We don't have the normal layouts. There it is. There we go. When did I opine on any rabbi? You didn't opine, but sometimes I think I can guess your opinions despite yourself. What was I saying? Oh, we were talking about antiphonic music, and so the most antiphonic service I know of is the Sephardic Selichot services, which are penitential prayers that are said before the Day of Atonement. and they tend to be very antiphonic, and they're some of my favorites. So I found a video of them to share with people, and then I was sitting there listening to it.
A musical texture where two or more groups alternate in singing or playing, creating a call and response effect.
Yes. I mean, we could actually go back.
כי ימינך פשוטה,
This is
שבים אליך בכל לב. ברחמיך רבים בנו לפניך. דלתיך דפקנו רחום וחנון. מלפניך מלכנו רקם אל תשיבנו. שומע תפילה, שומע תחינה. יבוא אליך הרוחות. הנשמה לך והגוף בעולך. הנשמה לך והגוף בעולך, צור אשר אין דומה לך.
so that's antiphonic.
Have you ever been there?
I have been there. I have not been there for Selichot on the night before Yom Kippur. Did I ever go to Selichot at the Kotel? I don't think I ever went to Selichot at the Kotel. They don't generally have. I mean, the day before Yom Kippur, I don't know if they even had this 25 years ago when I was in Israel, but I used to go to there's a Sephardic yeshiva right next to mine, and I used to go to that one. Yeah.
Sephardic. What does the Sephardic mean?
Literally, it means Hispanic. So
from Spain?
Yeah. So what happened was that some Jews were in Ottoman lands mostly, and other Jews were living in the Roman Empire, right? And what was left of it. And so communities in the Roman Empire tended to send all of their questions to the rabbis who were living in Germany and France, mostly Germany. So the word Ashkenaz in Rabbinic Hebrew refers to Germany, and the word Sepharad in Rabbinic Hebrew refers to Spain. And so the Jews in the Ottoman lands tended to ask all their questions from the rabbis who lived in Spain, and two liturgical groupings started developing. And when the printing press came around, a Sephardic rabbi by the name of Joseph Caro wrote what is usually translated as the Code of Jewish Law. And he explained Jewish traditions, how he knows them and knew them and practiced them. And Rabbi Moses Isserlis, who lived in Germany, so Rabbi Caro lived in Israel, actually. Rabbi Moses Isserlis, who lived in Germany, thought that it was a great work, but their own communities had different customs. So he wrote a gloss, as in GLOSS, on the works of Rabbi Caro. And so it wasn't. It was kind of a commentary, just adding his own little notes to Rabbi Caro, and that got printed, and it became the Code of Jewish Law, which was accepted all over. But it's still accepted by all Orthodox Jews, and so there became a codification of the different opinions, Sephardic and Ashkenazi. And so, I mean, in some ways, the differences can be overblown, but there are differences. And so, for example, the Selichot prayer, the penitential prayers, Sephardic Jews say for the entire month of Elul, and so we say it for 40 days, and I think the Ashkenazim say it just for like 2 or 3 weeks.
So I heard you say we. So you're Sephardic?
I am Sephardic, yes.
Okay.
So all the Jews from the basically Middle East, right, Ottoman Empire, would be considered. So just imagine the Ottoman Empire of 500 years ago. Those are the Sephardic lands.
Okay. Yeah, my brain's not functioning at 100%, and I was thinking, I'm glad that this is
Neither is
recorded.
mine.
I got some sickness.
Don't we all? Ottoman Empire 1500s map. Let's see what I can find. Image. That's a good image, but like it doesn't just let me see the image. Why won't it just let me? Where is that image on that thing? I am going to give up on that image and go find a different image. Here we go. Share this tab instead. So, Wikipedia. Ottoman Empire 1566, 1481. Let's say 1566. So that is the general, 1683. I know there was a time, well, I guess it wasn't just the Ottoman Empire, but who had control of Spain? Which Muslim empire conquered Spain? Muslim Empire ruled Spain. It was the Umayyad Caliphate. Let's see if we can't get ourselves a Umayyad Caliphate. Yeah, so that's a much better representation of what are considered Sephardic lands, although it doesn't include most of Turkey.
Okay. Well, while I was hanging out here, I had someone tell me that I broke something, so I get to go fix something.
Go fix something.
All right. Good to see you, Jacob. Have a great one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Feel better. Didn't call and response music start in Africa? As far as I know, everything started in Africa. I'm watching a Chinese historian and listening to Western history from a Chinese guy is so interesting. Very out of the box. Shalom, Rabbi Yid. מה שלומך? Should we go back to listening to Salihot?
שמך בעבור שמך שמך נקרא עלינו שמך נקרא בקרבנו אלוהינו בושנו במעשינו אין לנו פה להשיב כי רבו משובותינו חטאנו עם אבותינו من نمر לפניך אדוני אלוהינו من נאמר לפניך יושב ברום אלו הנסתרות והנגלות אתה יודע רזי עולם אתה חופש כל חדרי בטן אין דבר נעלם ממך עם עוונינו אנו בנו עם עוונות תשמוריה כי עמך הסליחה כי עמך מקור חיים כי לא על צדקותינו אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך כי על רחמיך רבי.
There are women on the wrong side of the Mechitza, and the Rabbanut is actually showing it. God have mercy on our souls.
למענך אלוהי רצה עמלך שיחר לחלות פניך במעמד השחר.
Women wearing talitot. Wow. Eze busha v'cherpa.
למענך אלוהי דילים ממצולות ים שבע ראש.
After Spain, it was Salonika, I think. Parenting 10 boys. You don't have 10 boys, Chezi. Sorry to tell you. It is very thick with holiness. At least it was before there was all the mixed seating, standing. At least they weren't sitting. God have mercy on our souls.
بلعن ببيت نودا بشبيام بشور نحصام بعنيام بألتفين لمريم بأتوزين لشبعام أدوناي أقشيبا למען אלוהי ועשה לטובות וחונן נפשות עצובות למי ישע צמאות.
For your sake, my God, do as a kindness a sign, and have mercy on the souls that are aggrieved. To be as water of salvation for those who thirst, and gather those who have been dispersed. Spread out.
بقبس الدحيم بزور بكل بيوت أشر
Upon all the corners.
مراب تلاؤت.
Because of the greatness of Telaot. What are Telaot, Chazi? Taf Lamed Aleph? I don't know what a tala is. What is a tala? It's like a worm? It's sad that you see this as a busha. I don't see this as a busha. I see the marring of this as a busha. Talaot is difficulties. Aha.
Adonai.
Oram ma'od shachar. Awake them in the morning? I should probably be looking at a translation rather than trying to translate. Although there was a time I actually knew the meaning of these things. Lord, listen and do not delay. Shalom. I cannot hear you, unfortunately. I blame the English. Like all good Persians do. Yoav seems to have frozen on us. RJ, what do you want to talk about? Jonathan, what do you want to talk about? By the way, Jonathan, you are so much younger in that picture than you are in real life. Yoav!
Okay, that should be better.
Yes, we can hear you, and we can see that you have 0 hedges.
Yes, that's my favorite news source.
Really?
Yes, it's a site.
I've kind of sort of heard of it. I'm not a 0 hedge.
Yeah, it's my replacement for The Economist. My family used to subscribe to The Economist
God
for
have mercy.
decades. Yes, for decades.
Yeah.
And this is Mikdash Me'at, when The Economist got destroyed.
Don't click on it, Jacob.
Don't click on. Oh, take you off.
No, 0 hedge. I'm just kidding.
I'm looking at 0 hedge. It's telling me to seize the means of production.
Yeah, always helps.
Yeah.
I do need to update my profile picture. Although my wife is releasing me from my Nazarite vows tomorrow, so
what year?
Oh, that's probably 2007 or 8.
Okay,
so we're getting to be 20. Yeah, I was in my mid-20s after college, but definitely before the grain and the thinning and all the rest.
Yeah. RJ says the office of neo-Misnagdimism approves of Sephardi tunes. Somewhat, not too much. Only if it's sad and you're saying confessions and like the Misnagdim are only happy when they're sad. There's a famous joke nobody's gonna get, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. When are Misnagdim happy on Purim? Why are Misnagdim happy on Purim?
Why?
Because they can read the Megillah in the tune of Eicha. So on
Hebrew pun.
no, so there are tunes with which we sing parts of the Bible, and one of the curious things about Purim is that when we read the book of Esther, we read it in the tune of Lamentations.
Mhm.
So why are Misnagdim happy on Purim, which is a very festive holiday? Because they can read the Megillah if they're going to read something happy, at least they can do it at the using the tune of Lamentations.
I gotcha, because they're a bunch of sad sacks compared to the Chabad people, right? So that's the
Compared to
joke.
the Hasidim, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, story.
Yeah.
There is a show by ex-president Mr. Navon called Bustan Sfaradi, meaning Sephardic garden, and describes the Sephardi Jewish community in Jerusalem when the Sephardim were a majority among the Jewish population in Jerusalem, and Ashkenazim were a small minority. Very much laughed at in jokes as you was conveying. And in that play, there is a wedding. Of course, a Sephardic wedding, and there's a much happiness and rejoicing. And no internet, so people are contributing their own songs and dance. And invited, do you know the story?
No.
Invited is also the one Ashkenazi rabbi they have, and his only daughter. So the Ashkenazi tells his daughter, well, it's a wedding, why don't you sing a song to the crowd?
His daughter singing in public?
Yes. So, well, it's a wedding. So she said, yeah, I know a good song. It's called Take Me to You. And people said, oh, yeah, Take Me to You sounds like a very good song for a wedding. Then she goes on the chair and starts singing as follows. Elohim, Elohim, El Rachom V'Chanun, Oy kach oti elecha, Oy kach oti elecha. And then comes a litany of all the pogroms and suffering that the family has suffered in Europe, all the rapes and killings and burning. Quite a long song. And that, okay, I will translate. The song is called Take Me to You. It says, Dear God, please take me to you. I cannot stand it anymore. So this is the difference between the Ashkenazi, what you call the Mitnagdim, because Hasidim are nice, but this is the difference between the Ashkenazi Mitnagdim and the Sfaradim.
So I was at the Los Angeles Festival of Books, and there was a panel about Jewish books. So I decided to go to the panel about Jewish books. And RJ, that is Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, Rav Avadia's son. And yes, he very much looks like his father. So I decided to go, and there are three people, on the stage, and they start talking about the importance of and the main the main theme of Judaism is tzuris. I'm like, tzuris? What's tzuris? I didn't know what the word meant. So tzuris is a very Galicianer way of saying tzarot. Very, very, very Ashkenazi way of reading the word tsarot. How do you translate tsarot? Problems, difficulties. Yeah. So
we have so many names for trouble and difficulties.
I was sitting there for half an hour trying to figure out what, like, they kept on talking about how this is such an important part of Judaism. I'm like, what is going on? And then I figured it out. Oh, it's an Ashkenazi word, of course. So Rabbi Rav Avadia Yosef wore that. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu wore that. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef wears that because it is the official dress of the Chacham Bashi, who was the imperial court rabbi of the Ottoman Empire. And so the Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel still wears the costume of the Chacham Bashi. He is referred to as by the title Rishon LeZion, which you might actually know as a city not too far south from Yoav, which it means the first of Zion.
Yeah, I played the clarinet in the orchestra of Rishon LeZion, which is called the orchestra, because it's the first orchestra ever in Israel.
Aha! So it's okay. It's orchestra shel Rishon LeZion.
The orchestra. You don't have to just the orchestra.
It's just orchestra.
Yeah, because it was the first one. It was founded by the Baron Rothschild in the 19th century.
Or do they do the very Israeli thing of calling it the orchestra with a dalet and an aleph?
No.
The hardest thing for me to read in Israeli newspapers is when they're trying to when they transliterate an English word into Hebrew. It is so hard to read because I'm trying to guess what the vowels are.
Yeah, just trying to read an orchestra in Hebrew.
I can imagine. When it's a very long word, it becomes a little easier. The word for Persian in modern Hebrew, ancient Hebrew as well, is Parsi. Paras. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, so there's a word in Farsi that's been that was being used all the time in the news I was listening to. The word is terror. So it doesn't just mean terrorism. It particularly means assassination, right? And all the news was constantly talking about whether Israel was going to terror Khamenei or not. So I asked my dad, is it just the word terror from English? And he's like, no, terror, tir in Farsi means to shoot, means bullet, right? So terror means like shooting.
Same as in French, as far as I know.
Really? That might be where it's from. Although the month, right now we are in the month of Tir. I was born on the 7th of the month of Tir.
And today is?
Today is the 9th of Tir.
Okay, so happy belated birthday.
I thank you.
Many returns of the day.
Thank you.
Hey, happy birthday. Belated.
Well, my Hebrew birthday is in a week.
I don't understand. Isn't your Hebrew birthday the same as your Gregorian birthday?
Only once every 19 years at least.
Oh, right, because of the drift.
Hmm.
Gotcha. Well, I thought the yard sites were more important, and I don't want to celebrate that one prematurely, right? So,
Actually, funny enough, I almost started this. So I actually posted my conversation with Grok on the Discord. So I couldn't sleep last night, and this morning PVK was talking about the redemption, and Rabbi Burton was talking about the redemption, and I got into this whole thing with somebody in the comments to one of Rabbi Burton's tweets, and then I ended up talking to Grok about it, and I thought it was an interesting conversation.
the one you posted?
Yeah, I posted it in psychotherapy.
Yeah, I saw it. Grok, I don't talk to Grok much, but it's got that same kind of grading personality that ChatGPT has.
So, do you use AI?
I don't use Grok. I use ChatGPT and Perplexity.
Okay. Yeah,
maybe they all talk the same. What's that?
Like Claude, I think Claude is like incredibly, is like ChatGPT with snark.
I want my AI just to give me lip and to argue with me if I say something wrong. So I mean, the amount of times I've corrected the AI and it's like, oh, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out. I'm like, well, my confidence level in being right there is about like, I don't know, 70%. I was like, I'm pretty sure maybe I'm right. But it's not building confidence when they glaze me every time I correct it.
I don't like the fact that Grok sometimes argues with me when it's absolutely wrong.
Well, that's even worse.
Yeah, like several times I've gotten into. I mean, Grok quality fluctuates,
yeah.
Which Yosef said makes sense because they seem to be farther behind the other companies, so they're trying to do a lot of adjustments. So.
Yeah, I mean, are we in the 56K modem era of AI? I mean, so it's hard to know if is this just going to be like a memory that you're like, oh, those Gen Zers, remember when they used to have AI problems, and then they're going to remember when AI sucked or was bad or
So my first modem was 300 baud.
Oh damn, you are old school. Well, I guess you were born in 77. Yeah, my first modem was probably 28.8 14.4. I don't think I knew anyone. I think what was a 3600 baud or 40.
Well, once we got up to 2400 baud, you no longer had to worry about typing too fast and the modem disconnecting.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first time I used a modem was to play Warcraft 2.
Wow. Yeah, we used to. I mean, I did a lot of BBSing, and some of the bigger BBSs had multiple lines, so people could be on chatting with each other. And I didn't usually go on those, but in the chat rooms, if you typed too fast, the other modem would take it as an attack and disconnect you.
Human manual DDoSing or denial of service attack, just like that. Yeah, that's funny. And it's funny because you're talking about a BBS and here we are on just chatting in 2024, or 2025 rather. I'm old enough to know what year it is.
There is nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. But I was actually talking to a colleague today because I'm like, you guys should just record more of yourself, demoing your work and, just record yourself and share that recording as opposed to writing tomes of documentation and explainers and all that stuff because no one reads. No one wants to read anymore. It's like, we used to have, we would story tell it. It's like oral tradition because we didn't have writing. So then we invented writing. And that was a shortcut and a compression, right? But now we can have video again that scales, or now we can have the interpersonal thing that scales.
So
So-
I actually have tried to find if there have been any studies, because I can certainly listen to a book much faster than I can actually read it.
Yeah. Do you retain better with it?
I don't know.
Yeah, because I feel like I listen to a lot of things fast, and sometimes I have to listen to it again.
But how much of that is just the fact that I'm 48 now?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good point. Or how much is it just that because you can passively listen to it versus when you read, it's really tough to read and do something else at the same time.
And oftentimes I end up like, what did I just read? And going back a paragraph or so.
Yeah, I've done that before. Yeah, I do that a lot, actually. It's like, I guess when I'm tired too. Or if you get, your mind wanders, right?
Yeah.
But there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Yeah, I generally type around 60 words per minute. And which my mom says whenever she sees me typing, it's like I'm fake typing because it's so fast. She's like, how do you type that fast? But I naturally do around 50 to 60. But yeah, I like with 300 baud, I think if you went more than 30 words a minute, we actually had to pace ourselves, because if I typed at full speed, I would get disconnected. Yoav?
Someone's got wind noise. Is it me?
It
Yeah.
may be Yoav, it may be you.
What? What's the problem?
Somebody's mic
Yeah.
is loud. I am going to check by muting Yoav.
Now he's tight. Now he's trying to talk.
Well, it's gone.
Yoav,
Yeah, I fixed it.
Yoav, when did you first start reading Zero Hedge?
Okay, let me tell you the history of my disappointment with The Economist. I cannot get, I don't remember the date. I mean, it's quite a,
Has it been like 10 years? 5?
yeah, it's more, could be even more, 10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Really, 10 years? I thought it would be the TDS,
TDS?
Trump derangement syndrome.
No, it was the Zionist derangement syndrome.
Yeah,
The Economist was always, critical of the state of Israel, but then this doesn't qualify them. And then with the advent of the internet, they had a voice edition. There were the read aloud voice edition that you can go to on an app.
Mm.
And when they read the article, you can really hear the hatred in their voice.
Zero Hedge isn't a big fan of Israel either, though, from what I can tell.
It's eclectic. It
that's fair.
it gives you a range of opinions.
That's true. That's true. You're right.
Economists just tell you what the master tells them to write.
For sure.
Who owns The Economist? Isn't it owned by some Arab country?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I quit after they changed. I mean, there was a change of ownership, and of course, the usual promises. Well, nothing will change in the editorial, and I quit. There was a stage that I would only read the comments, because The Economist used to have good comments, because the comments in The Economist used to be written by the crowd of Economist readers, and they were highly educated and intelligent. So for some period of time, I would not read the articles at all, but just the comments to the articles. But then they started to censor the comments. And then I bid them goodbye.
Yeah. Honestly, the quality of internet has Well, it definitely went down from when you basically had to be a college student or work in the military to have access to the internet. But I think voice to text severely made things worse, because you used to be able to tell who, like, people with caps lock on, or didn't know how to type, or like there was a certain intelligence bar that no longer exists, because yeah talk to text just has made it that much harder to tell who the sub 85 IQ people are. You should have to pass a math exam to comment on the internet.
So regressive. I like it.
Based, as the
Based,
kids would say. Yeah.
reactionary.
Another difference between reading and listening is that I can listen while I'm asleep. Because in the TLC, there's much more content that I can squeeze in 24 hours. So, especially in the beginning, when I was only lurking and never, I would just turn it on because somehow when you sleep, so some of the content filters through. It's better than not listening to it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I listened to it at 1.5 speed. So, yeah. As far as I know, none of the AIs actually can do math.
Yeah, cool.
They're all LLMs. They're large language models, so they can't actually do calculations.
I thought that some of them know how to route it into the Wolfram Alpha kind of deal.
So now Grok has 2 buttons you can use. One of them is deep research, and the other one is one is deep research, and the other one is think. And I think think is supposed to actually do the calculations, but yeah. AI can use a calculator, Gavin says.
Yeah, the basic trend nowadays is called agentic. The AI is an agent, like a manager that select a certain of steps, and then it's also connected to many tools, and they can create a workflow composed of several steps and using several tools. This is where they want to get at. But then Gavin needs to jump in and explain. It's not my profession.
Wait, so is agentic AI number 1 or AI number 2?
What do you mean?
Don't understand.
Just joking. God number 1, God number 2.
Oh,
yeah.
I missed you on that. Sorry.
No. Okay, it's a good one, but
it was just a joke. So I don't. That's not a good discussion. I don't think.
No, we did not.
Jonathan has 4 kids, so he makes dad jokes just impulsively.
Yeah. Come by it honestly too.
Yeah. Actually, it's an interesting thought. The AI is an agent inside an AI that is the arena.
The arena. Yeah, the LLM was the original arena. Right now, it's getting agentic.
Interesting thought.
Interesting thought. Yeah. Just thinking of just taking my kids and going to a CRC church just so they learn the Hebrew Bible.
Really?
Yeah. I mean. Yeah. I mean, only kind of ish, maybe, because you're not going to get a whole lot of it from the Orthodox Church.
Right.
So they have a monarchical trinity, but they don't teach a lot of Hebrew Bible.
At the same time, as a Noahide, you don't have an actual obligation to actually learn the Bible.
I don't have an obligation to teach my kids that either. Whew. Good. I thought I was going to hell. For that.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, you've read more of the Noahide code than I have.
Well, I mean, depending on who you ask, right? I'm supposed to give charity too. Not always so great at that. So
I think everybody says yeah. Like, so Derech Eretz Kadmon LaTorah. There are things which are, I mean, so literally Derech Eretz Kadmon LaTorah means the natural law comes before the Torah, meaning it is a prerequisite for Torah, right? You have to approach Torah from Derech Eretz. And so certain things, for example, respecting your mother and father, that is obviously something that is incumbent upon Noahides, but it's not one of the 7 Noahide laws. It doesn't even fit within one of the 7 Noahide categories.
maybe murder if you squint, right?
You have to squint really hard for that one.
Well, embarrassment is really
embarrassment, okay, but that doesn't mean you have a special obligation to take care of your parents, especially in their old age. Although maybe in their old age that's actually closer to don't kill.
Yeah.
Don't let the British and the Canadians here. They might actually decide not to kill their old people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing we could talk about. But
yeah, I will have to leave you soon. It's supper time here.
Was there anything you wanted to talk about before you left? No.
Yep.
Do you ever go to Selichot at the Kotel?
No.
Do you like antiphonic music?
Yep. I like music.
Music is good. Music is good. One time, somehow, on the night of Yom Kippur, me and my family, my sister, my parents, and I ended up at a Reform service. And it was the eve of the Yom Kippur, and everybody had water bottles by their seats. And it's like it's been 2 hours. Do you usually have water bottles by your seat? Like, just because it was Yom Kippur, they had to have water bottles, right? Like, they could not go an hour without water. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and they decided to replace the Amidah. So the Amidah on Yom Kippur has 7 blessings. And they decided to replace the Amidah with 7 soloists. So they had 7 like different classical things. What reminded me was Yoav playing the clarinet, because one of them played the clarinet. And like, we were sitting there listening to this concert, basically, and my sister turned to us, and this is dating me, said, "Are they going to do the Macarena now?" And I could, so we're listening, it's supposed to be a contemplative time, and we're listening to classical music, right? And I was like trying really hard not to laugh. I don't think I laughed very loud, but it was just so ridiculous. Oh,
my wife's family this kind of Jews. And in Yom Kippur, of course, the synagogue overflows because everybody who doesn't usually go to the synagogue goes on Yom Kippur.
Right.
So they had an extra place in the center of town, and there is a shuttle service, also Yom Kippur, between the two synagogues.
Well, I mean, when I was growing up, Yom Kippur, we did Yom Kippur like the Mishnah talks about Yom Kippur, which is all the young girls who want to get married, get dressed up. The Mishnah actually talks about this. Actually, funny enough, so one of my cousins won a Pulitzer Prize, and he wrote an article for the Los Angeles Times about another one of my cousins who met his wife this way because he was explaining, he was like doing a cultural reporting for the Los Angeles Times. But like Yom Kippur was the biggest, social event of the year.
No, that was Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av.
The Mishnah says on Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur.
Okay.
Right? That's what the Mishnah says.
Okay, so both dates, 15th of Av. Then,
yeah. Nowadays, Tu B'Av has become a big thing, especially among secular Israelis. For a very long time, Tu B'Av was just one day we didn't say Tachanun, which meant all the Misnagdim were particularly sad on that day. But Tu B'Av nowadays, yeah, again, but no, Yom Kippur, like, and so people would go synagogue hopping. They still go synagogue hopping to like see, like, all the younger guys get to see the young women and to get phone numbers, stuff like that. And yeah, one of my cousins actually ended up meeting his wife that way. They've been married I don't know how many years now. They have 2 kids who are both in college. No, one of them graduated. Yeah. RJ says, can confirm we're sad on that day. It's a day that ends in a Y. Bye, Yoav.
Unfortunately, my Parnassa also calls.
Okay.
Are you going to be doing this for a little while?
So I am doing this in order to keep me awake for a appointment I have at 12:30 because I didn't sleep last night, and then afterwards I'm going to go to sleep. But if I wasn't doing this, I would probably be nodding off,
crashing out. All right. Well, I'll be back in a half an hour if you're around. Okay. I'll check for you, cool. Or sooner. Hopefully, you never know how these things go. Okay. Bye.
Yehuda Israel, wow. How you doing?
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom lecha, achi. How are things?
Great. How about you?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Nu, what would you like to talk about? It's all you.
Oh. I discovered this new he's not one of these Hebrew Israelite types, but he kind of entertains their sort of thing. And I noticed he was having these he calls them Israelis, I mean just Jewish people. Mm-hmm. And he was like, it's kind of like, that Hamza Absorber guy, do you know who I'm referring to? Who's this Palestinian, he basically like has Israelis come on his live. He goes on Omegle and like talks to like children in Israel that don't really know a lot about. They say very uncouth things and they just try to. So I don't know. I was trying to sort of get into that a little bit. I don't know. I guess we could be for these 15 minutes that I have. I don't know if we usually do mincha here at work at like 2:15ish. So I might be in there for like. I guess we could. Maybe this is too big of a topic. I'm confused. Your views on. I'm not trying to like get too confrontational, but like on Zionism and whatever.
Perfect question. Yes.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that despite what anybody else may think, my views on Zionism, to the degree that my views on Zionism in any way disagree with the Lubavitcher Rebbe and the official true teachings of Chabad about Zionism, I recant, repent, ask God's forgiveness, and ask the Rebbe's forgiveness because I am wrong. But what vast majority of people don't know is the actual, including, unfortunately, too many people who should know, who is the actual Chabad position on Zionism, which is that until the establishment of that state, Chabad was very, very strongly opposed to Zionism.
So you are Lubavitch, just to clarify. You identify with the Lubavitch movement?
I depends who you ask. I personally think I to the degree that I can, I do what the Rebbe taught.
Okay,
That's
cool.
my.
Yeah.
So I had a Gimel Tammuz stream, and
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a little reason for why I couldn't sleep last night was it was Daled Tammuz, which is almost harder than Gimel Tammuz, but whatever. Yeah, the thing is that before I was so strong into Chabad, I took the Satmar position. I have the Satmar Rebbe's books up on my shelf over there, some of them, because when I was in Israel at yeshiva, I read Ben Hecht's book Perfidy, and then I went and I asked Rabbi Beryl Wein, who was teaching at my yeshiva at the time, if about the details, and I asked him, is there anything he could tell me which would change my mind? And he did the way Rabbi Wein, if you know Rabbi Beryl Wein, he sighs. He has a sigh which speaks volumes. He just sighed. And after that day, I never called the airport in Lod by its name, unless I very much had to. And I try not to say that man's name. And I became a fervent anti-Zionist. The only way that someone who was...
You're talking about Ben Gurion? Who are you talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only way that someone who had gone to all the AIPAC conferences and was very much thought of himself as a Zionist could. And I started learning more the Shita of the Satmar Rebbe, etc., etc., etc. And then a Satmar rabbi, a rabbi I was pretty close with, who was a direct student of Rabbi Eilish. Like he actually grew up going to Pesach Seder by Rabbi Eilish every year. So he told me to cool it with the anti-Zionism. And when he told me to
I guess when you get it from...
yeah. when he told me to cool it with the anti-Zionism, I started realizing I need to maybe cool it with the anti-Zionism. I started learning more about the Chabad Shita, and now, so I have a copy of Maneh Chacham here. Let me pull up.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you had a copy of Ein Banim Smecha.
I do not have a copy of Em Habanim Smecha, but so this is my Yalkut Amarim V'Yol Moshe, and this is my Al HaGeula V'Al HaTmura. My two, they're not actual, they're Likutim of the Satmar Rebbe, and this is my Maneh Chacham. And this is the book that I have tried to learn. I've done several live streams on it. It's by Reb Yoel Kahn, who is acknowledged to be one of the closest and most knowledgeable students of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Maneh Chacham is two letters in which Rabbi Kahn, Zichrono Libracha, he explains why the true anti-Zionism is actually Chabad's Shita, and what the disagreements between Chabad and Satmar are. And to the degree that I understand it, I follow exactly what Rabbi Yoel teaches in Maneh Chacham. Who am I to say I agree with him? I am nobody to agree with Rabbi Yoel Kahn. I try to understand what he says and act accordingly. So I have gone the entire range from very, very Zionist to very, very anti-Zionist to now what I hope to be some good mix of a mature view on religious Zionism, which I would say a knowledgeable Lubavitcher would recognize as the Chabad Shita on Zionism.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So, I mean, and this is something that is kind of more emerging to me. Like, I think I told you, I was doing genealogical research on my family because I'm a Baal Tshuva, but all of my family are Jews as far, Ashkenazi Jews as far back as I can trace. And I had never heard of, I saw a letter that one of my great uncles, who I guess was one of the founders of the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh before it became like less religious. Yeah. And it said his father, who would be my great grandfather on my maternal side, like my mother's father, was a Husiatan Chassid, and I had never heard of that sect before. And when I looked them up, it looks like they are the most Zionist. They were on the heels of the Hibat Zion movement. That was like a proto-Zionist movement. And it just blew my mind because so many people, when I have these conversations in, Zionist, anti-Zionist spaces, they will immediately say, well, actually, even in religious Jewish spaces for this, not just the pro-Palestinian stuff, they'll say things like, well, the majority of rabbinic, virtually all of the Haredi world was against Zionism.
Yeah.
And save Rav Kook. And that's not true. From what I know, because there's the Ruzhiner dynasty was an entire, like, it's not just Husiatan, the Sadegura, right?
Right. Yehuda, look, well, Kfar Chabad was there before the Zionists were. And the Alter Rebbe was raising money for the people living in Eretz Yisrael. Like, if you study Tanya, there are letters that are included in the back of Tanya in Likutei in the Igrat Kodesh, which talk about the importance of living in the land of Israel and supporting people who live in the land of Israel, and right.
Mhm.
What do you mean by Zionism?
Well, that's what I mean. What I mean is, like, people will claim that the state of Israel is not a biblical fulfillment of anything, and we have to dismantle it, and this, that, and yes, I have a YouTube channel. It's my
Yes, he does.
I've
linked to it. Yeah, and I am very supportive of what he does on his channel. Yes.
Toda Rabba. Likewise, yes, mutual. Yes, very supportive of what you do as well. And I feel like the word just gets conflated. I get that Theodore Herzl was secular. Everybody knows that. But why do we have to assume that Zion, what we can't, there's a overlap, right? You have secular Zionism and you have religious Zionism.
So this is part of the reason why the Chabad Shita is not to talk about Zionism so much. And because of that Shita, I try not to bring it up unless I absolutely feel it's necessary, right? Which sometimes I do. And to understand why I do, I mean, I highly recommend anybody who wants to understand how I view it to actually learn Ma'aneh Chacham. There's free copies all over the internet. Although recently I saw that the one that I was linking to was taken down, which I'm not surprised about, unfortunately. But the fact is that one of the things that Satmar has always been very makpid about is that our opposition to Zionism should not in any way be seen as being allied with, and this is the difference between Neturei Karta and Satmar. Neturei Karta is a very small, there are maybe a few dozen families who are affiliated with Neturei Karta, right? And most people don't differentiate between Satmar and Neturei Karta. Even Satmar has stopped so much identifying as anti-Zionist. A lot of Haredim, especially most Haredim, have now started calling themselves non-Zionist. And I had to do the same thing 20 years ago because the anti-Zionist movement changed from being a movement of Jews who were critical of Zionism to being very anti-Semitic. And it became impossible to distinguish. And I've made video after video on this. Like, if the anti-Zionists would stop being so anti-Semitic, then there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Jews who would, certainly Satmar, who would gladly to join in with their criticisms. But Satmar doesn't join in with all of these anti-Zionists like Neturei Karta does. Kalanimus is actually Satmar. I had a professor in college who suggested that Jews should be political atheists. This applies to Zionism as well.
So I apologize. I think I'm gonna have to go. I might jump on, but
don't
we don't make a
apologize.
meeting, I
Pray, have me in mind. Yaakov ben Farnaz is my mom's name.
Okay, yeah, okay, for sure.
If you're gonna daven, make it a good
absolutely.
one. Make it a good one. Yeah. So no, don't apologize. But if people want to talk about this, I'll talk about it as much as people want to talk about it. But I certainly don't want to in any way be encouraging those who would murder Jews, etc. Right? And this is a large reason why a lot of Jews cannot have not and do not affiliate with the anti-Zionists. What can I say? Stop with the anti-Semitism. You'll have more Jewish anti-Zionists. But the way things are, the Jews who even, I don't care what your criticisms of the state of Israel are. Like that, you're going to wear a keffiyeh? Like, what do you, like, come on. You're going to chant from the river to the sea? You're going to vote for Zohran Mamdani, whatever his name is? Rahmana litzlan. Rahmana litzlan. I actually do wonder if Zohran Mamdani has gotten Satmar Michal, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you? Well, I heard you
Thank
didn't get
God.
a good night's sleep, so I mean,
I did not get a good night's sleep.
yeah.
Do you like my hat? Trey bought it for me for my birthday.
It's too small for me to read.
It says "Missed Me, Trump 2024," and it has the famous picture on the side.
Oh, nice, nice.
I could wear it like this and be really hip.
Yep.
Cool with the kids. So what are you up to these days?
I don't think there's much since the last time we talked, not that long ago, really. I mean, there's been a weekend, I think, so. Yeah.
Wow. Even Satmar backed Cuomo against Mamdani in New York City. There you go.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is that place just gonna fall into the ocean now?
Which place?
New York City.
New York City? Los Angeles hasn't fallen into the ocean. Why would New York City fall into the ocean?
I don't know.
I'll tell you a story. One of my rabbis told me he knew somebody. So there's obviously a large Jewish community in Los Angeles. So people come from Israel to raise money for yeshivas there. And one of my rabbis told me that one of his rabbis who had come to Los Angeles to raise money was saw our bus benches, and our bus benches are very weirdly shaped. Like if you come to Los Angeles, you will notice that the bus benches are not normal bus benches. So he asked, why are the bus benches shaped in these weird ways? Why don't they just have normal bus benches? And somebody told him, oh, it's to keep the homeless people from sleeping on them. And apparently when he heard that, he took a cab straight to the airport and left, because he said, I never believed that there would be a place so much like Sodom where they would deliberately go out of their way to be unkind to people.
Yeah, but there's like a million tents with homeless people everywhere now, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, but the bus benches still have bars on them, etc., so that the I don't know if they've gotten around to what you call it. Yeah, there's a big fight between Gavin Newsom and our mayor. He actually took it all the way to this U.S. Supreme Court and won. So they cleaned up some of the worst stuff here around my house. But yeah, once this was a few months ago, I posted about it on Twitter. I was walking my dog, and there was this young black man sleeping in the middle of the sidewalk, right? And it's a pretty busy street where I live, right? And I'm walking my dog, and we're all walking around him. And I just felt so horrible because I knew if I call nobody, like if I call the police, nobody, and if I bother him or like I'm not gonna go up to him, like, so I just walked around him like everybody else, and it really, really bothered me. 15 hours later, I'm walking my dog again. He's still sleeping in the exact same position in the exact same place.
That's a long time.
Yeah, a human being does not do that. I unfortunately didn't have my cell phone with me, so I had to run home to call 911. But like, I can't imagine he was still alive.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of people that really failed that Good Samaritan parable there.
Yeah. Yeah. It just bothered me so much. He couldn't have been. He was maybe in his 20s. Maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
this is a fun live stream now.
Well, we discussed Zionism, and we discussed what else did we discuss? We discussed how Ashkenazi Jews obsess about having been oppressed for hundreds of years. So now we're talking about how Los Angeles is like whatchamacallit? Adam, there's a slight difference. You don't sleep on the sidewalk in the exact same position for 18 hours. Yeah, it was probably an OD. I mean, nowadays I have 2 doses of Narcan in my apartment. I probably would have run back with it, but if the Narcan, I think Narcan is still good for a couple of years. Better than nothing. Yeah, I called 911 and I'm like, well, I can go back, but I didn't have my phone with me, so.
Yeah, I went to I don't know, it's weird. We went to I lived in San Diego for a year. And that was a place where it's like there was a lot of people that were homeless because they were hippies and because they wanted to. Like, it's a pretty ideal spot for that. Like, it was back in like 2007. But then we went up to Los Angeles and went to like Skid Row. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But then it's like everywhere, but up in like Boston and stuff, like the homeless, I don't know. The homeless people, I guess, were just a little bit more industrious. Like, they mostly knew they like had to do something at like mildly entertaining to get your attention or something, or not totally, but there was a little more engagement. I don't know, but those they'd have good stories and stuff, like.
People
But
don't realize, I didn't realize Skid Row was deliberate. Like the government decided, okay, we're going to confine these people to this area and manage them there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you gotta. It's a very image conscious city, so you gotta hide the ugly parts, right?
Yeah, I guess. Jonathan,
What I missed?
lots of stuff. Yehuda Israel jumped on to ask me about Zionism.
Oh, can't imagine that was a boring conversation.
Actually, it was pretty boring.
Pretty boring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same stuff. I mean, I busted out my anti-Zionist books.
Which are what, like the Mishnah and the Talmud or the Bible?
So this is an abridged copy of Vayol Moshe, which is kind of the Bible of religious anti-Zionism. It was written by this. Vayol Moshe was written by the Satmar Rebbe,
Wow.
and it's had a resurgence nowadays in actually religious Zionist circles, because they're actually reading why somebody might be opposed and finding his things compelling. But this is an abridged copy. A real copy would be 4 times the size. But that's Vayol Moshe. It's very well known.
Mm-hmm.
This is Al HaGeula Val HaTemurah, regarding the redemption and regarding its counterfeits, by also the Satmar Rebbe, which was a smaller pamphlet-like. I mean, this is the actual size, which was supposed to be for people who aren't necessarily, don't have the chops to learn Vayol Moshe. And this is Maneh Chacham, which is 2 letters by Rabbi Yoel Kahn, who, after the Rebbe's passing, was in a very real way the leading student who explained things to people. And he wrote 2 letters explaining why Chabad is actually, despite what people think, more anti-Zionist than the Satmar Rebbe was.
Goodness.
Yeah, when when I read that part of the introduction to Yosef, he's like, "Wow, what a competition!" So yeah, and yes, these are books that I have studied religiously.
Very good. Michael, what part of Texas are you in? Or are you not in Texas? You just have a Texas.
No,
Stay
San
on it.
Antonio.
Okay.
San Antonio. Yeah.
Okay. How long have you lived there?
7 years.
Oh, okay. You ever get up to Austin?
Yeah, occasionally. Are you up there? Or?
I used to live there.
Oh, okay.
Mark S. says, my little brother preached his first of 3 sermons about how Christians shouldn't be Zionists yesterday. Great stuff. Depends what you mean by Zionist. What I tweeted out was, if by Zionist you mean attaching religious significance to the modern state of Israel, I am an anti-Zionist. If by Zionist you mean having a special relationship with the state of Israel, modern state of Israel, over any other country, I'm a non-Zionist. If by Zionist you mean Jew, I'm a Zionist.
Jacob, what is your prescribed advice for how do you think Christians should interact with Jewish people or think of them in this contentious time?
I think Ted Cruz was absolutely right to actually look at human history and look at the Bible and understand that there were blessings that were given to Abraham, which were then given to Isaac, which were then given to Jacob, who was called Israel, and that those blessings, as Paul says in chapters 9, 10, and 11 of the book of Romans, are irrevocable. And he says this of those who rejected Jesus during his lifetime, at the time, the people who were alive there. My family, at least some of my ancestors, were literally in Babylon during that time. So they had not heard of Jesus. So if your idea is that I am descended of Jews who, like, my family literally speaks Aramaic, because some of my family never left Babylon to go back during the time of Ezra. So, like, I've told this story way too many times, but one of my cousins, when she was young, she's older than me, but she was like a 5-year-old, was on a train with her parents, and she starts playing with this other little girl, and they're playing fine for a while, and then suddenly she starts crying and runs to her mommy, saying, "No, I didn't. No, I didn't." And the other girl was crying, running to her mommy, saying, "She killed Jesus. She killed Jesus." Apparently, my cousin had brought up the fact that we were Jewish, and the other girl had never heard such a thing of Jews except from her Bible, which has the apostles hiding for fear of the Jews, and all she knew, like, she killed Jesus. Now, do I blame that 5-year-old's parents? No, of course not. I'm sure they very calmly explained to her that no, Susie didn't kill Jesus. But, right? So, yes, all Jews have Abraham as their great grandpappy, because as Mr. Douglas Wilson, no slouch when it comes to Calvinist theology, likes to point out that Eliezer was what does he call them? Plank members of the original Jewish Mayflower. They were circumcised by Abraham.
Yeah.
The covenant of Abraham has always been a covenant of faith, always. And this is actually Father Stephen's much better reading than most people have of what Paul is saying in the book of Romans. Yeah, I didn't get to see that yet, Don. But so, as Colonimus says, maybe not genetically, genealogically, but spiritually, yes. All converts are considered children of Abraham. And I have to say, if you really want to see my DNA tests, it is virtually impossible that I am not a direct descendant of Abraham by, if you believe that there was an Abraham, which I do, by at least a few of my ancestors, if not direct patrilineal, although my Y chromosome is definitely from the area. So, like, I don't know what to tell you, but like, if you have a theological reason why those blessings of Abraham don't apply to me personally and my uncle who lives in Beit Vegan, or has he moved from Beit Vegan? I don't know if he still lives in. He lived in Beit Vegan when I was in Israel, but he grew up in on the rivers of Babylon, very literally, in Saqqez. And you can look up where Saqqez is in rural Iran, speaking Aramaic, and now he lives in Jerusalem. And like, if you don't see the miracle there, he was born in during World War II, right? So, like, if you don't see the miracle that he's living in Jerusalem, I'm sorry, you are blind to the God who runs this world. And if you don't believe that, if you believe that Satan runs the world, okay, be a Gnostic, whatever. That's your belief. But I would remind you of Gamliel in Acts 5. So that's what I think Christians should believe about Israel and that. Yeah.
Okay, here's a
Pretty much
question.
all the stuff I usually say anyway. So.
So when Satan asked God if he could tempt Job,
Yes.
was it Satan's idea or was it God's idea?
It started with God initially, because everything starts with God initially. Everything starts. Satan is an agent of God. Speaking of the agentic and Arenic. And so the idea of how much agency angels have, actually Christians believe angels have more agency than humans do. Good question. Ultimately, it all goes back to one source. This is why so many Christians have difficulty when I quote, is it in chapter 49 of Isaiah, where God says, I created evil. Right?
Don answered my question. I forgot about that.
Yeah. It was, well, that's
Consider my servant Job.
that's the big. That was, nobody noticed or replied at all to the tweet I made, but the big difference, like within the more Calvinist circles, is between the supralapsarian or infralapsarian camp, and basically to say, like, did God choose, who? I mean, and I think really it's before creation, but it's to say, like, did God choose the people that were going to be saved before the fall or after the fall? And if you put it after the fall, then you have to do all this cognitive dissonance stuff.
Now we are going to have to discuss the word chosen, because to my shocking surprise, I find out that Christians believe the word chosen actually means the most ridiculous caricature of the Jewish belief of being a chosen people I have ever heard, which is the idea, which Paul very clearly seems to be refuting in the first few chapters of Romans, that just because you are born Jewish, that makes you a better person or more beloved by God. So we talk about ahava yetera, a greater love, an extra measure of love, which God has given us. that we were somehow chosen to be entrusted with the oracles of God. It is something we merely merit by the virtue of the fact that our parents had gave it to us, not anything that we ourselves have done. And we, as Paul very clearly explains, this places a much higher requirement upon the Jew who did so on the day of judgment, because God is fair and just to every single human being. Like he says over and over again, he will judge the Gentiles justly, and he will judge Israel justly. And like Jesus quotes the rabbis, to those to whom much has been given, of those to whom much has been given, much will be required. Like, to imagine that the chosen, the nature of Israel being chosen, what I say, the comparison I make is to be chosen to be a Jew is like being chosen to be the horse from the stable that the king decides to ride. He chose to ride a particular horse.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't. Well, I mean, because I think there's big problems with the idea that so I'm going to say, yeah. So I would say there's a difference necessarily between those who are being saved and those who are chosen. It seems clear to me. I mean, well, no, I mean, but like, because you have like that sheep and the goats kind of thing, and it's like there's all these people that are serving in their ignorance. They have no chosenness is about your purpose.
Chosenness is about your willingness to accept God's love. Well, no, election is.
Yeah.
I have to get my Christian terminology right, because these ideas are so foreign to the Bible that in Ezekiel 18, God says such things should never be discussed or said because it is evil to do so.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying so. Let me put it this way. So what I'm not saying is that, okay, you know, it's not. I'm not saying that everyone, like that the elect are the only ones that are saved or whatever, or if the elect are the only ones that are saved, if those are the only ones that are chosen, you know. But like, you know, because it's, well, you know, because it's this kind of, it is the fair judgment thing and basing on the criteria of what you know. Some people are brought, you know, some people have a purpose in their life because God does something, you know, that he does call them out in some way. And, you know, they have I mean, it's like, I mean, I would say, yeah, it's like everybody in the Bible that gets chosen, it's usually like, it's a trade-off. It's not a fun thing. Their life is less fun, but then they get the benefit of knowing that they have been chosen by God. They have intimacy.
I keep on bringing up the parable of the talents.
Yeah.
It's the parable of the talents. And you are given a certain amount, and depending on what you do with it, that's what's going to happen. And let's face it, while this isn't true on an individual basis, because God arranged the people knowing how he arranged history is going to be history, and God's will shall not be thwarted. God knew what a putz I was before he created me, and he knows what a putz I am now. So he put me in a place where my being a putz doesn't F up anything.
Yeah.
And so you should in no way be surprised that among the Jews, there are people who God has placed in certain places to bring forward history to where it needs to go. Because he knew them before he created them.
Yeah. Okay. But there's also, I think there is also an aspect of chosenness that is not. So I'm going to say the criteria. Okay, because it's like a father and a child or whatever. It's like, does Benjamin do anything in his life as Jacob's son of significance?
Not that I can remember, other than killing his mother.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like so but that's like what is the criteria for him deserving his father's love? It's that he's his son, so
his son from his favored wife, which was one of Jacob's great sins.
But even that, and in that sense, it's
Benjamin was Jacob's greatest hit.
The one that reminds him of the loss of his favorite wife.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, his name literally means the son of pain.
Well, that was the original one, right?
That's what she named him Benjamin, because Ben Oni, like, it was funny. So my nephew Ben, Benjamin, was always going to be named Benjamin because we have a tradition in our family of naming the firstborn son after the paternal grandfather. So my firstborn son, would be named my father's son, and so my nephew was going to be named Benjamin after his grandfather, and my sister very much wanted him to be the first fruit of the womb, which there's a special ceremony, redemption ceremony, that is done, and my sister very much she liked the idea of doing that ceremony. And unfortunately, if you have a C-section, that doesn't count. You can't do the ceremony. So my sister very much wanted to have a natural childbirth, and she was in labor for 3 days. I know because I spent those 3 days with her. And the third day we were in the hospital, and suddenly the baby's heart monitor goes off, and there was an emergency crash C-section, which scared the bejesus out of my sister.
That's what happened with our first too.
Yeah, so the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck apparently, and when I told my sister where the name Benjamin comes from, she was she actually found it comforting. She's like she kind of, the funny thing is, so she wanted to have a natural childbirth by her first son, and that wasn't to be. So by her second son, she actually scheduled a C-section, and usually after the first C-section, they usually do C-sections after that. And she scheduled a C-section, but she went into labor, and he was born too quickly for them to do the C-section, so he came out naturally. And my sister decided by her third son, she's not gonna make any plans. Yeah. And of course, Chezi has to have a Zionist taich to Benjamin. He's the only one who was actually born in the land of Israel. Ah,
Interesting.
um,
Yeah.
Clara
Well, you know-
is going to be what you call it in like I guess at 12:30, and I'll be off by then. So
What now?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just bringing that up because just thinking about the way that the Christians, when they criticize like, oh, the Jews are rejecting Jesus or something like this or whatever, or because of what they do, or they don't really follow the law the right way, and I'm like, yeah, but if you're a Christian, you believe that you know you were saved by grace, like while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. It's totally not based on the things that you do. So if so in some sense, if it's like, if God preserves someone because he's keeping a promise, which is his faithfulness is totally independent of our regardless of our faithlessness, I guess you could say. Like, in some sense, you almost have to expect that he's going to bless people that don't deserve it, because that's the whole point of like a blessing, Otherwise, it's a transaction.
Okay, so yes, there is. So the Kabbalists actually discuss this at length, and they talk about lechem de kesufa, which is bread of shame. And they say that while it is certainly good if you see a hungry man to feed him, it's bread of shame. The best way is to hire him, to give him a job, and uh, and have an excuse to feed him. And so, I mean, and anybody who's had a dog, right? I personally like making this analogy. I go to the store, I buy treats for my dog Happy and my cat Shadow, and I give them as much treats as they can eat without getting sick. If they could eat more treats without getting sick, I would give them more, right? But I still make Happy sit and shake. I didn't even know, I didn't train her to shake paws. I realized she had been trained, and she kind of expects to me to make her shake before I give her a treat. So I make her do that. But I don't make her do that because I need her to shake. Like I need her to do the trick. I do it for her. Right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that God gives us his commandments, asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav, that he has sanctified us in his commandments, is very much like me making my dog sit nicely before I give her a treat. It's not for me, it's for her.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think just in the thought of like the weird warping of compassion that we have in our culture, where now we're people are looking at like maid as the escape hatch or whatever, but like
God have mercy.
in some sense it's like so you think about the people that have extremely low capacity, and then it's an imbalance, but it is right that we just take care of them as long as we are able to. And they may never, there's some people that may never gain any more ability to take care of themselves than what they have as a child. But in the same way, we are doing a disservice to all the other people who were more or less giving treats without teaching them any any tricks.
Honestly, if you have a dog, you realize how much of a disservice you do to your dog by not training them, not like giving, especially a working dog. If like that dog will destroy your house because you are being so selfish as to not spend the time to train that dog.
Yep.
And God always, and this is ultimately the Kabbalist answer, God always does things in the best way possible. So God gives to man da leitle, right? Chesed is chas dalet, right? Has kindness upon the he who does not have. The late is Aramaic for he who does not have, right? So chesed is chas dalet, is has mercy on he who does not have, right? And so what does God give us? He gives us the vessel and then he pours it. Like that woman who Elisha was going to pour the blessings out for her, he asks her to go and get all the vessels that she can, and he fills the vessels, right? So God gives you the capacity to do, and then he asks you to do so that he can bless you and your cup will run over.
Yep.
No, but cats do need to you do need to give them things to hunt. So I have like things like I have a fishing pole around here somewhere with a lure on the end so that Shadow can pounce upon it. Yeah. So they need their exercises. But I mean, Jesus says it quite straightforward. I mean, I guess in most languages it's not as straightforward as it is in the Hebrew. What's the Hebrew? But to whom much has been given, of those to whom much has been given, much will be required. According to your potential. And God knows your potential because he gave you that potential. So one of the Noachides, he hasn't participated in a while, but he got involved about 2 years ago, and he was trying to decide. So he was raised Hindu, but obviously he found Hinduism lacking because he believed in one God, because that's obvious even to a Hindu. And so he was looking at Christianity and Islam, and everyone he talked to, his parents were still alive and they were Hindus, and everyone he talked to said, both Muslims and Christians said that his parents were, if they didn't also convert, they were going to hell because they were pagans, literal pagans. And he decided to go Noahide because it was the only religion which would not condemn his parents to hell.
Yeah, that's understandable.
That's one way to pick a religion.
I wouldn't pick a religion that would. So I'll tell you guys another story. So when so the rabbi and Rebbitzin at the Chabad house. My rabbi's been on the channel a couple of times, but the rabbi at Chabad at USC, he's an incredibly special man, and frankly, I've seen open miracles around him. But he, there were two Mennonite girls who separately, they were students at USC, and they wanted to know more about actual religious Jews. So they both started hanging around the Chabad house. And over the 4 years that they were students, both of them, they didn't know each other before they came to USC. They were both Mennonites, and they both decided to convert to Orthodox Judaism. So one of them actually ended up not converting. The other one did convert and lives in Israel with her, is married to a Jew. She's Jewish, obviously, now, and lives in Israel with and has children. But both of them were in the process of conversion, and it was very interesting to me. So I asked them, what made you convert? So one of them answered, and the other one said, yeah, that was it. And the answer she gave was, I spent so much time with the rabbi and his wife. They know about Jesus. They don't believe Jesus is the Messiah. They don't believe Jesus is God. They spend, and if you know these people, I mean, Rabbi Wagner, here, I'll make the story a bit longer. So Rabbi Wagner, before COVID has changed things, but before COVID, they used to have about 300 perfect. So they have about 300 people come, 300 students come for Friday night dinner. So they spend most of the week preparing dinner for 300 people. And then they spend the entirety of Sabbath with all of these students. And then Sunday they have off, right? So one Friday night I was there. This was a while back. And Rabbi Wagner was very tired, as he always was. We were still up. It was 1 a.m. on a Friday night. So, but he was very tired. So he was about to go to sleep. And the Chabad house is right next to Fraternity Row. And somebody knocked on the door. And he wanted to talk to the rabbi. He was obviously not well. So Rabbi Wagner goes outside to talk to this guy. And I waited, I think, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before I went to bed. And I wake up in the morning for services at 7:30, 8. And Rabbi Wagner is just coming in. And I asked him, did you get any sleep? He's like, no, we stayed up to watch the sunrise. I said, did you know him? He's like, no. Was he Jewish? I don't think so. Okay, so try to get some sleep. I don't know how much he slept. Services are at 10. And then it was all of Shabbat, right? So Saturday night, I do what Jacob does, and I start telling Rabbi Wagner, you need to take care of yourself. Yes, I mean, you don't need to stay up with every single, you know, stoned young man who comes off Fraternity Row sees a menorah and wants to talk to the rabbi. You have to take care of your own kids. And what he said really stuck with me. He said, I am. So that's Rabbi Wagner. I love that man. I didn't sleep all night too. So
I was gonna say, Jacob, he's
he taught me that. Anyway, so I was talking to this girl, and she said, I see the rabbi and the rebbitzin, and their entire life is dedicated to God. It's all they do, morning till night, every waking minute. And I could not believe in a religion that said they were going to hell. And frankly, I have to say, if you believe, if your version of Christianity says they're going to hell, God have mercy on your soul on the day of judgment. There's a explanation of the day of judgment given by some rabbis. It's a drasha, but it's one way to understand the day of judgment. That you will get, by the measure with which you measure, you will be measured. What happens is, on the day of judgment, you will see your own life and know everything about your own life, but you won't recognize yourself. And you will pass judgment on yourself. That's one understanding of what it means that you by the measure with which you measure, which is quoted several times in the Talmud. Like the Talmud, like this is a common saying in the Talmud. Kol midotav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu midah keneged midah. Right? All of the measures of the Holy Blessed One are measure for measure. Right? So that's one explanation of what that means. You're by how you judge is how you will be judged. You will see your own life and you will pass judgment. And God have mercy on your soul. It bothers me so much that good people I know, believe in penal substitutionary atonement. Because if you believe that it is right for the innocent to suffer instead of the guilty, how much more so is it right that the guilty suffer? If your measure is that God cannot forgive without punishing, God have mercy on your soul. It really, I have good friends who are no, look, when it comes down to it, frankly, I believe Sam Tiedemann believes in penal substitutionary atonement. God have mercy on his soul, and it keeps me up at night.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing is it is the same thing, because there's many good people that believe things that maybe are wrong. Well, certainly, there's many good people that believe things that are wrong or likely untrue, and probably because it got past, like, at some point way back in history, there was somebody who was afraid of the implications of saying things a certain way, because it would maybe they're worried about how people would behave, and so these things get in there, and then you know, that that person is responsible for that. But then it always makes this paradox, because what do you do with the good thing? What do you do with the bad things that the good people believe? And it's especially, I think it's a little rough now with like this internet thing, because there's a lot of people that have a set of beliefs that maybe are rooted in relationships with good people that they actually know, but then they get to interact with the other people only in this kind of disembodied way. It's not like the experience of those girls.
I can't say that about Sam Titterman. That's what worries me. Sam is smart enough. Sam knows enough. I mean, I trust God knows what he's doing, right? And Sam like, he's been excommunicated 3 times now for being a Trinitarian. Unitarian, sorry, but for not being Trinitarian, right? Like, so he definitely has that going for him. What bothers me is he speaks in tongues, and I've talked to him about it, and he believes in penal substitutionary atonement, and he really believes in it. And I mean, he argued with Father Stephen about it in Romans, and I think he just hates the idea because he understands that universalism is of Satan. He mistakenly thinks that anybody who denies penal substitutionary atonement is some sort of universalist. God have mercy on our souls, right? And so, like, what God knows what he's doing. God knows what he's doing, and Sam's a good guy, but Sam's right about everything except for speaking in tongues and whatchamacallit. Speaking in tongues really worries me, and penal substitutionary atonement really worries me. But
my thinking on the penal substitutionary atonement thing is that if you get to judgment and God's like, hey, as it turns out, nobody had to die for your sins, I can just forgive you. I think a lot of Christians who believe in PSA would just be like, okay, great, glad to know. Whew, that's a relief. Like, I had the wrong idea.
Yeah, but
I don't think there's going to be very many who are going to be like, no, you really, are you serious? Like, that's terrible. No one's going to argue.
Is it the Belgic confession, or what's that? What's the really whatchamacallit?
I don't know which one is the
one where tulip comes from. God have mercy on our souls. Like, the blasphemy. Like, if somebody genuinely believes the blasphemy there, I mean, Ezekiel 18 is pretty, like he's reading the riot act right there. Like, God is condemning specifically tulip. Like, I don't understand how you can read that. Like, on the day of judgment, God's going to be like, did you not read this chapter? It's an entire chapter. And it's not the only place. Like in Jeremiah 32, is it? It says never should, and that's where Brit Chadashah comes from, New Covenant comes from, right? It says this should never be said in Israel. Are my ways not just? Are your ways not just? And there has never been a justice system in the history of humanity which has practiced penal substitutionary atonement. Not even the Calvinists in Geneva practiced penal substitutionary atonement. Never has anyone thought this was justice.
Yeah, well, it's not justice. No one thinks it's justice. It's a profound injustice, but that's why it's a mercy. I mean that someone takes your place, and I don't think that and you know, I do think honestly all these things, like I just will always try to read it charitably because you know there's things that people say and then there's people, and so you know there at some point those things line up, but it's a muddy water. So,
we both tried to put it up at the same time.
Yeah. I had the same thought when you said that too.
Yoav always gives good comment. Never to be said in Israel, okay in Geneva.
I mean, yeah. Well, and that's even the thing, like, because I think that people do people do understand, people that get saved in that way because of a revelation of God, of Christ's sacrifice. They're not thinking it's just. They're realizing it's unjust. You know, like, and that's something
The
that
people
happens
who say
sometimes.
it's a forensic act of justice, of God's justice, like James White, seriously, Keith Foskey, serious. He came on my channel.
Every Calvinist will tell you the same thing.
God have mercy on their souls. Jan God understands the Bible better than any Calvinist. If someone is going to suffer for my souls, it's gonna be me.
What about that poor goat?
For my sins.
No, lots of people suffer for your sins. It's not it's about being punished for your sins. Suffering and punishment are two different things.
Your sins cause suffering in the world, but those who suffer because of your sins, Isaiah 53, will be rewarded eventually, that they suffered because of your sins.
Yeah.
That is what Isaiah 53 is saying, right?
Jesus
Who would believe our report? What?
Jesus is rewarded eventually.
Okay, if that's what you believe. I don't believe that you can be a Trinitarian and believe Jesus is being rewarded for suffering.
Why not?
It's like if
it was just a reward and he knew about it, then why is there suffering? It's not suffering if you so this is the Jewish idea of suffering, and Rabbi Sachs put it best, right? We suffer because we don't understand. Because if when you go to the gym and you know why you're having the pain for the gains, you don't suffer.
Yeah, you still suffer.
That's not real suffering. Actual suffering is Eli lama sabachthani.
Yeah, but then he says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So that's, it's suffering in pursuit of a higher goal, of a higher purpose. I don't know.
If that's your belief, it seems good. By the way, once we're on this, why did God have to do for our sins, chas v'shalom, have to die for our sins? I think he means chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom, God cannot die. If your God died, your God is not God. Do Christians think it's not within God's power to forgive our sins just as he is? So the vast majority of Christians don't actually. So they have this whole other way of believing it, which, thank God, I didn't know that. Well, most Catholics actually believe in penal substitutionary atonement because they haven't been taught that Catholics shouldn't believe in penal substitutionary atonement, and the Protestants make all the movies. But officially, Catholics. So I tried to find an official Catholic theologian talking about penal substitutionary atonement, and he said penal substitutionary atonement is too incoherent to be named a formal heresy, which was a good enough answer for me. The Eastern Orthodox, certainly modern Eastern Orthodox, do not believe in penal substitutionary atonement at all. They clearly reject it. But a lot of Protestants, that's a lot of Christians, unfortunately, that's how they understand it. So for Kalonymus, I always thought that Christians said such horrible things about the Jewish God that Christians were Marcionites because they believed that that's like the old God and Jesus is their new God, right? That they didn't actually believe that's God, right? It's the Jewish God, so we can say he's like this terrible monster, right? And then I found out that Christians call God this terrible monster they describe the Old Testament God as, and they believe it's their God, which was the most crushing thing. I felt so sorry for them. I still feel sorry for them. Like I saw Brian Crawford explaining how he believes God functions in a video. And I pinged him on my Discord server. I said, please, for the love of God, pray on this and reconsider your conception of God, because my God, that sounds like torture. If you actually believe how Christians describe God from the Old Testament is actually God, and you don't like explain it away, oh my God. Like that sounds like a life of absolute torture. See, Claire gets it. Penal substitution is human sacrifice. Okay, I am going to end the stream soon because Clara is going to be streaming, and she asked me to join and give my view, and my appointment got canceled, so I am actually going to be awake to do that. And so I am going to go make some tea and come back and be awake. Anything anybody wanted to say before we go?
Just play us out.
Come on, Michael. You always have something good to say.
Nah.
Meh.
Nah.
Okay. I guess we'll end with this. I'm going to use host's prerogative to put the Reverend Parcells to bed because he does need to get up in the morning.
Sorry, Reverend. Thank you.
But before he goes, I have a question. Let's say, God forbid, that I were to burn somebody at the stake for not being a Trinitarian, and I did not repent of that. Is that a salvation issue?
Sometimes Jacob takes that devil's advocate thing too
Isn't
far.
there a proverb that says something like, don't answer a fool according to his folly?
But there's a proverb that says, answer a fool according to his folly.
There is. Exactly right. I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine, which of those was applicable in this situation as I go. So, but anyhow, good.
Thank you, Reverend.
Good to
Thank
chat
you.
with you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.